Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with the second video on the 2018 Grand Chess Tour first event held in Leuven in Belgium. 3 days of Rapid and 2 days of Blitz. These were the 10 participants. The world elite is there. 8 of these players were also playing in Norway chess. The only 2 that are not here are world champion Magnus Carlsen and the unfortunate Ding Liren, who broke his hip in Norway chess on the first rest day. They are replaced here by Alexander Grishuk and Anish Giri, also 2 of the elite players. The first 3 days of Rapid were dominated by Wesley So. He scored 14 out of 18. There were double points available for the Rapid games, so in the usual scoring, So scored 7 out of 9 in the Rapid. You see the rest of the scores there. Then 2 rounds of Blitz were played and Wesley So also came out on top at the end of that. But it was quite close, as you can see. Wesley So only scored 8 points out of 18 points of Blitz, but he just managed to stay ahead by half a point on Sergei Karyakin and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. And you can see the other participants. Anish Giri finished at the bottom with 5 points in the Rapid and 6 in the Blitz. It was a dramatic finish. Wesley So lost his last 2 games, but also Karyakin and Vachier-Lagrave lost their last game, so Wesley So just finished out on top. That gives him 13 points for the Grand Chess Tour. I'll show you the remaining events at the end of the video. And it pockets him $37,500. Not bad for 5 days work. In this video I'll show you the game that Wesley So played in the Blitz against Anish Giri. It was round 5 of the Blitz, round 5 of 18 Blitz rounds over 2 days. And Wesley So had drawn his first 4 games and this was round 5. Let's see how this game went. It was the 15th of June 2018, white Wesley So, black Anish Giri. Knight f3 from So and d5 from Giri, b3, knight f6, bishop b2, fianchettoing that bishop, g6, c4, that pawn was taken, b takes, bishop g7, and So is also going to fianchetto his other bishop. Black castled, bishop g2, c5, So castled, knight c6, and here d3 is the main move according to the database, but Wesley So played knight e5. Giri does not want to swap that knight, he played knight a5 and queen c2, protecting the c4 pawn once more and protecting the unprotected bishop on b2. He doesn't have to worry about bishop f5 because then he can just play d3. Knight d7 from Giri. That knight was swapped. Bishop takes back and So took on g7. King takes and Wesley So wins a pawn with a small combination. Bishop takes b7. Black took that piece and So wins his piece back with queen b2 check with a double attack. It's check and the knight is hanging. So king g8, queen takes b7. So has won his piece back and has won a pawn in the process. Giri decides to chase the rook. Rook went to d1 and bishop back to e6. Attacking the c4 pawn, and it's very natural to protect it with d3, but that's a mistake. That costs the pawn because of bishop takes c4. And you cannot take the bishop because your rook on d1 is unprotected. Wesley So saw that, of course, and played queen e4 to protect the c4 pawn. Rook b8 on the open file. Knight c3 developing his last piece. And queen d4. We're going into an endgame. Queen takes, c takes, attacking the knight. Knight jump to d5. That piece was also taken. c takes back, and we have a rook endgame with an extra pawn for white. I forgot to tell you about the time control, which was 5 minutes per player for the whole game, plus a 3-second delay. Rook endgame, extra pawn for white, but as we know in rook endings, it's not always about the number of pawns, it's about how strong those pawns are, and it's above all about rook activity. In this case, black has compensation for the pawn he's down. He played d3, and you don't want to take that pawn. He takes d3 with tripled pawns on the d-file. The Irish pawn center, we call that. These pawns are so weak they will fall like sweet cakes. So after d3, So played e4. f5 from Giri. f3, he wants to keep his pawn duo intact. f takes, and rook b4. Activating that rook, attacking one of white's pawns. So defends it, and rook b2. Now attacking the d pawn, and that's a precious pawn, because if that pawn goes, the d3 pawn of black will become a strong asset. And here's an instructive move from Wesley So. He played rook a d1. He prefers to lose the a pawn over the d pawn, as the pass pawn on the a file is still at home, is far away. Rook e d1 to protect both pawns. Well, I just talked about rook activity, and this is a very passive move. It's a move like my friend, who is an international master, would say, you are not allowed to even consider a move like that. So let's not consider it. Rook a d1 was played by So. That means that black won his pawn back. Rook takes a2. Rook e3, trying to round up that potentially dangerous pawn. Rook a3 defending it. Rook c1 activating that rook. And g5. g4 from So. And Giri starts running with his passed pawn. Passed pawns must be pushed. Rook c7 from So. And here black played rook f7. Grandmaster Alejandro Ramirez in the live broadcast said black is going a bit passive. That rook on f7 is a bit passive. He also showed what black should have played. Very instructive again. He should have played rook a1 check. And after king g2, rook a f1. Setting up all sorts of play against white's king. And this position is in the balance. Let's look at a variation, how dangerous actually black's play is against white's king. If you take that pawn on d3, then rook 8 f2 check, king g3 and rook f4. Attacking this pawn, and if you think, well, I'm going to push it, then your sense of danger has betrayed you, because it's actually black who now checkmates the white king. With rook g1 check, king h3 only move, and rook f takes g4, and there's no defense against rook h4 checkmate. So that's how quickly things can go wrong for white. So back to rook a1 check, which should have been played, king g2, rook a f1. If you take the other pawn, if you take on e7, then rook 8 f2 check, king g3, and you can take the pawn on d2. And again, black has enough play, and this position is in the balance and should finish in a draw. Back to the game, as mentioned, rook f7 was played, which was called by the grandmaster on duty that black is going a bit passive. e5 from Wesley So, rook a4, attacking the g4 pawn, h3 from So, and Giri played rook d4, and this is what Grandmaster Ramirez called a howler. That rook is not really doing anything there, as we'll see, as black can protect the pawn on d5. Giri was also getting very low on time, So had more time on the clock, and he found the winning move. He found e6. Attacking the rook dropped back, and now rook e5. Protecting that pawn, and attacking the g5 pawn, and the e7 pawn is also hanging. And his rook on d4 is quite passive, is not doing much there. It was international master Jovanka Huska who said in the live broadcast, maybe rook df4 is an option here, trying to set a perpetual against white's king, but then white will take on g5 with check, and now that that g pawn is gone, the king can always escape to h4 if need be. With a pawn on g5 that's not possible. So there are no more perpetuals in the air. Grandmaster Sarawan said maybe black should play h6, but then white is winning after rook takes e7. In the game, Giri played rook d8, attacking the d pawn once more. Rook takes g5 check, king f8, rook f5 check, king g8, and here Grandmaster Sarawan in the live broadcast said rook d7 is a very nice move, very aesthetic, not giving up on the d5 pawn. Rook e8 is then a move, and king f2, and white will be winning. But Wesley So saw a quicker win. He took on e7, gave up the pawn on d5 because he can get 2 rooks on the 7th rank. And this is so bad for black that Anish Giri resigned. He also overstepped the time, but this is a winning position, an easily winning position for white. Let's see white's threat. If you play a4, just as an example, then you get checkmated. Rook g7 check. If you go to f8, there is rook ef7 check, king e8 only move, and checkmate. And if after rook g7 check you go to h8, then that pawn goes, king back, another check, king f8, and e7 check wins the game with a nice fork. It's a forced checkmate, king e8, you promote, king takes, and either rook can go to the back rank to give checkmate. So this is a threat after rook ff7. The only move to keep going is a move like rook g5, but then you also lose your h-pawn. And if, for example, you play rook a8 to go behind your passed pawn, then a very strong move is just king g2, bring the king closer. With 2 rooks on the 7th rank and 3 passed pawns, this is easily winning for white. The a-pawn can always be stopped with rook a7 if need be. An important win for Wesley So, his first win in the Blitz section, and as I showed you from the standings, he just scored enough points to win the overall event. Well done, Wesley So. Alejandro Ramirez's conclusion of this game in the live broadcast was that in the rook endgame, Giri played too passive and too slow. Quite an instructive rook endgame. So this was the first event of the 2018 Grand Chess Tour. The players only will have a few days to rest, because then they will continue the Grand Chess Tour in Paris from the 20th to the 21st of June. There are 2 events in the USA in St. Louis in August. First, St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. You may remember last year Garry Kasparov played in that event, and then followed by a classical event, the Sinquefield Cup. The finals of the Grand Chess Tour will be held in London in December. Congratulations to Wesley So, and let's see what will happen in Paris. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel. Please leave a comment, I will read them all and I will reply to them all. You also may want to check out my Chess to Progress channel. The link is in the description box. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.